I feel like talking about Zelda today. Now you're probably wondering what all of that means. Don't worry, this is not a Game of Thrones theory video. I'm here today to tell you about my adventure. For all that to make sense, we gotta go back to the beginning. Yeah, you'll probably want more than that. Just look at The Legend of Zelda 1, we truly would not be here without it. If it wasn't for Zelda 1, I wouldn't be talking about Zelda 1, I could be employed. Now this game has done the same thing we all have. Fucking aged. Whether you like Zelda 1 or not, you gotta admit, most games from its era just don't feel the same these days. That's why we need to look at it through the lens of someone who's from the era this released. Those three letters can only mean one thing. We're in the 80s! Now, just like most of us, Zelda was made by a company. And the company that made Zelda was a little unknown company called Nintendo. You may have heard of them. Now, Nintendo wasn't always a video game company. They started back in 1889, when the most popular video game was Sudoku. They also used to make playing cards and... My god, you thought the Pokemon cards were complicated? At least I know Cramorant V is worth 200 health points. What the hell do I do if I get this card? Go fish. These are called Hanafuda cards. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But, while these cards were a success for many years, cards were associated with gambling, which made it really hard to sell in Japan. Their next move was making hotels designed to... have quick and easy sex in? Who knew the makers of Starfy were so horny? When that failed, they decided to pivot to more successful toys. One of their most famous toys from this era was the Ultra Hand. This sucks, I can't gamble with it at all. Honestly, looking at this thing, it looks like it doesn't work in the slightest. But it is just a toy and it sold insanely well and it catapulted Nintendo on track for all of their future success. After all, it was made by Gunpei Yokoi, one of the most influential people at Nintendo, and even in the industry as a whole before the late 90s. Take that guy who made Brave Fencer Musashi. The success of the Ultra Hand got Nintendo focused on products that won't get your grandma disappointed. Video games! But this was the 70s, and at this point, home consoles were still a risky move. So the place for Nintendo was the arcade. They had it all. Pong, Space Invaders, drug deals. God, I wish I could have had a birthday party here. Nintendo was a huge part of the arcade scene, hitting it big with Donkey Kong and Mario Bros. Not this Mario Bros, this Mario Bros. Yeah, one word is the difference from this to this. Oh my god, this game was a success? We'll get to this game later. But for now, all gaming really had to offer was arcades, and there's a reason why. Now remember, home console gaming at this point was tragic, and everyone knows that the worst home console game was E.T. on the Atari. Just look at this. Yeah, tragic. But what's even more tragic than that is what the best game on Atari was. Oh my god! And they say gaming is dead now. Imagine if you were stuck with Pitfall and River Raid. So finally, in 1985, Nintendo decided to throw their hats in the ring and make the Nintendo Entertainment System. Or NES for short. And I know. The Famicom released before this in Asia, but that has as much relevance to me as if they released an Atari game on Hoth. Han Solo's like, Wookiees take the arms off anyone who beats them in Hogan's Alley. The NES had a bit of a different controller than what everybody knew and loved. Well, what everybody knew. Now I'm sure all of the religious moms saw this thing and got excited, But sadly for Angie, Claudia, and Beth, this isn't something for your messiah to die for your sins on. Rather, a D-pad. Just your standard up, down, left, right inputs. Much better than a stick, especially when back then the sticks they made were the sticks they made for the Atari. Now, it was hard for stores to give a piss about holding game consoles. I mean, I know I would never sell anything that launches with Clue Land. Thankfully, Nintendo was able to smuggle the NES into stores using good old Rob the Robot. Packing the NES in with this accessory made it not a video game, it was a toy. As for what the robot does, I don't know. Chimerite or something. It probably came to life in the middle of the night and killed your family if they sucked at ice climbers. Now, as promised, we gotta talk a little bit about Super Mario Bros. This game took the world by storm when it launched on the NES. Super simple game, in summary, quick to understand, hard to master, recipe for a great video game. Directed by one Shigeru Miyamoto, Nintendo developed this for quick and easy fun. But while developing, they also worked on another game that is the complete opposite. This game was also by Miyamoto, and their philosophy was the other side of the coin. Complex, puzzling, no requirement for intense reactions, and a great story. The story's in the manual. Look at this beautiful cartridge. Never before has a game been molded into gold, and my god, isn't this just the game that deserves it? Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the very first game in the Legend of Zelda series, titled The Legend of Zelda.
But this game was made to capture the hearts of the masses. It'd be a shame to just experience it alone. That's why I'm gonna have 3 other versions here, so they can sit on this couch, watch me play the game, and know they can't have a turn. They're here!
Hey! Got your voicemail. Ready to go to the arcade?
Why go to the arcade when we can play home console games?
Hell no!
Yeah, I had a television. I tossed it in my car window.
Were the games that bad?
No, I just didn't know how to turn it on.
Come on, guys, this is the new Nintendo console. We're gonna play the new Legend of Zelda.
I don't even know what the hell that is.
My lawyers would probably advise me to not play that.
Alright, I'm down. I just don't know what to do with all these quarters.
Those aren't quarters, they're Mario coins.
Alright, but if it sucks, I'm gonna go play Galaga.
First things first, let's talk about that title. The Legend of Zelda. When I was a 3-year-old kid, I said, that sounds stupid, ate some garden salsa sun chips, and went back to playing a game called Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Clearly I had bad taste in titles. Today, I like it. It's a little poetic, it's a little ambiguous, but what is The Legend of Zelda in universe? That's a topic for a whole nother video. In our world though, Miyamoto wanted the game to be called The Legend of something. While he brainstormed for names, he had a storybook made up to get the ball rolling on the plot. Miyamoto's editor told him that there's a famous author named Zelda Fitzgerald, and that they should use that as the name. We were so close to getting a game called The Legend of Fitzgerald. So before we pop in the game, we're gonna take a look at the instructions manual. Now I know what you're thinking. Zach, why are you looking at the instruction manual? You're a gamer, not a suburban dad. Remember, these games had no voices and very little text, meaning all of the information and story can't be organically delivered to the player like today. Rather, through the instruction manual. When I first heard this, it was odd to me. I mean, instructions are in the name, but elements of the story? Is Pac-Man circumcised? Check the manual, bitch. Sounds like something that should be at the end of the book. Let's skip ahead to some basic hints, seeing as I haven't even powered on the game yet. It's explaining to me how pause menus work? It is 1986 after all. What about my enemies? Let me at least study what I'm gonna kill. To defeat an enemy, one must read about them in the instructions manual. Okay, we got what's about to be a Zelda classic with the Moblin. Lionels and Darknuts are pretty cool. They lost me at rope! That's just a fucking snake! And keys?
That's a bat, not a key.
I may have failed kindergarten, but I'm pretty sure it's a fucking bat! Don't get me started on fucking rock! Wait, that's actually just a rock. I guess I got that one right. Man, fuck this manual shit. Let me just pop the game in. Man, what a serene title screen. Provoking a calm before an adventure. Up here we have... Wait a minute. What is this? Now I know you're probably sitting there pointing and saying, Zach, those are save files. I know that, but if you told someone in the 80s this, they'd say, what the hell's a save file? Remember, due to lack of good hardware, games in this era had to play around the fact that when you turn the game off, it forgets everything, as if it drank a big old cup of amnesia water. Now, there were some games that acted like you could save. At the end of each level, they would give you a password for you to write down and mash into your password screen, and boom. Bootleg save states. Is this a good way of doing it? Nope. Ricky from Mr. Turner's Grade 1 class could just give you his password progress and put you at the end of the game. These passwords are universal and not personalized. What password works for Ricky's cartridge is the same that'll work for mine. But you know, cheating aside, it's fine. It's kind of cool that they found a way to have saves without, you know, having a way to have saves. But for the most part, game devs design their games with more arcade features in mind. Get a high score, you die, you lose all your progress. But Zelda 1 is not that type of game. It's an adventure that's not meant to be reset every time you want to pop it in. So they whacked a little battery inside the gold cartridge and bam! Save states that don't make me want to pull my teeth out. While games are now saved in a different way, like on hard drives, the user experience is mostly the same as it is in Zelda 1. Almost every single game you play today has some form of saving, and it's all possible because of Zelda 1. And here we have the first screen of the rest of our lives. One green-clothed boy and his little shield. And yes, ladies, there's a cross on it. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
Don't tell me what to do.
Man, picking up the sword is really just a good way to start the adventure. It could have made you start with it, but making the player pick it up is a good way to teach them that items are valuable. Moving on from there, the combat is actually pretty good. It's all about the movement. Where Link is, where the enemy is gonna go next, and what axes both your attacks can move along. It feels like a very fast-paced chess game as you move around the map going to your next goal. Speaking of your next goal...
You fucking dumbass, you're lost, aren't you?
I'm not lost, I'm exploring. Does that manual have a map?
Yep, I have no idea where to go. The game doesn't exactly tell you. It doesn't vaguely tell you either. Honestly, shit game design, but I can't fault it too hard. It is the first of its kind. You wouldn't call a baby F tier for drawing on the wall. He didn't know better. He's a baby. Neither did the Zelda devs, and unfortunately, neither did the people playing it. Along the way, you'll find rupees, the currency of this game. Hey, I don't know about gems in this world, but in our world, a gem that size would make Link rich enough to buy Princess Zelda's safety. There's all sorts of caves you can go into and spend rupees on. All these small rooms with NPCs that have text above their head. This ranges from making no sense to making 0 sense. It's a secret to everybody.
Even me?
Take anyone you want.
Is the old man an option?
Let's play money-making game.
I thought we were playing Zelda.
Show this to an old woman.
Zach, you're asking for your mom.
Master using it and you can have it. Nah, I'll just take it. Miyamoto designed The Legend of Zelda with the idea of how excited people got over sharing tips and tricks about RPGs. I actually understand this. It really gives the game a new form. Playing this in the 80s must have been so much fun. Hearing tips at school, running home finding out that Ricky fucking lied. Not to mention, back then, gaming was a niche hobby. So for someone to have only one game was pretty common. So making it your life's work to figure out how to beat it is kind of exciting. Now, with the age of online tutorials and more variety in games that are more straightforward due to developers having more practice and resources such as text and sound, making a game this complicated has fallen by the wayside, with some COD Zombies and Destiny-related exceptions. Whatever year you're playing it, however, the lack of direction causes a true sense of wonder. The game plays with your brain, making the player more likely to make certain decisions. Like this screen from earlier. This was designed with multiple directions to go, but one place that they thought players would for sure enter. That being the mysterious-looking cave. This game works best when practicing the philosophy that adventure facilitates wonder. Miyamoto knew this when designing, and said that he designed the entire gameplay loop based on the adventures he had in his backyard.
Where the fuck did Miyamoto live where he had all this shit in his backyard? I'm talking lion centaurs, creepy shopkeepers, and a massive labyrinth of dungeons. All I had was a butter knife and some soap.
Alright, I got some tips and tricks from Ricky on the playground. I'm pretty sure he lied when he said that you can find a lightsaber by killing this old guy. But I think he was telling the truth about where to go. Make a right on this first screen, then go up until you see this funky looking bridge, then make your way to this unemployed tree, and here you can find the first ever Zelda dungeon. If this is a bird's eye view from a slight angle, how come I can see 4 walls in Link's face? Beyond hurting my eyeballs, it looks pretty sick considering the NES runs like it was powered by a hamster on a wheel with 3 legs. Hey, what can I say? The 80s were trying times, alright? He must have lost to fighting in the Cold War. Just glad that poor bastard doesn't ever have to play golf on the NES. Anyways, whatever, go into a room, kill some assholes, and collect yourself a key. Not that key, this key.
Holy shit, I got a key! I'm gonna use it to open as many things as possible!
What could it even unlock?
Oh, a car, no, a house, no, a boat!
So many possibilities. You gotta try on the door first.
Okay.
Try on the door. Try on the door.
Whenever you use a key, it's consumed. I don't know if it's because each key only opens one lock, or if it's because each key breaks after one use. Either way, I'm traumatized.
My key!
Move your way through the room to get access to the dungeon item.
No way! I got a croissant roll.
You would want a croissant roll, badass.
The boomerang, sure, is a weapon you can throw at enemies to stun them, and then finish them off with the sword. A much needed upgraded combat. Well, not too much of a power jump yet, due to the fact that it doesn't actually kill anything by itself. Just something to give you a fighting chance. A little further into the temple, you get this really cool boss fight. It's actually pretty challenging, unless you know the very easy strat of just stand here and tell him to go fuck himself. Get the piece of the Triforce, and that's it. You got yourself a gameplay loop. The more dungeons and exploring you do, the more items and health you get to aid you in combat, which honestly scales pretty nicely with the enemies. Provided you know, find the heart pieces. These things are littered around the map in the stupidest places. You gotta do shit like bomb a random wall and talk to the man inside. Take anyone you want! Sir, do you live down here? That aside, the gameplay progression and loop feels honestly great here, and it's where the Zelda series shines. Some of the new weapons you acquire include awesome things like a bow and arrow, a candle that shoots fire, a McRib. Okay, well, you know, I mean, like, they're not all winners. With your combat, you have options. You can either use the boomerang to hinder your enemies and then finish them off with a sword. You can kill them with just a bow, although that consumes materials. Or you can just light them up with the one-time use candle. Man, I wish the NES controller had a few more buttons. Having only one item at once is a pain, especially with how slow the menu is. It's not bad, but it sure is no weapon wheel. Eventually you get items such as the flute and the raft. These items don't help you with combat, but they open up new dungeons for you and is an awesome way to get the player to progress. Rather than locking you behind a wall that you can't access until the game wants you to, you're just prevented from progressing due to your lack of arsenal. My only gripe is these items are kinda only good for that. Once you use the raft to progress, that's kind of it. It's not helpful in battle at all. Kinda like Wrecking Crew on the NES. I mean, have you used that thing in a gunfight? Like to defeat the Dodongo. Do you use the cool dungeon item that you found in the dungeon he guards? No, you just use the fucking bombs. And if this hint is to be taken literally, the bombs don't even kill him. He just doesn't like the smoke. So that's why they have this sign outside of his house. Now, in the dungeon you get the raft in, imagine if the boss fight was all water and the corners had land, and you had to use the raft to leave the islands he's attacking on. That would have been so cool! Now I know that's a little advanced for hardware run by a hamster with 3 legs, but I don't know, I think it'd be doable. Hey, at least the flute gets it right. Pull that bad boy out during the Dig Dogger boss fight, and you turn that bastard into pocket change. It's a tool, it's a weapon, for only one boss, but it's a weapon nonetheless. It's neat, I like it, take that, raft. But that's alright, progressing is the name of the game. Whatever helps us get the Triforce is a good item in my book. Honestly, collecting Triforce pieces is a lot nicer than being told to fuck off by Toad. Speaking of Triforce pieces, you're probably wondering, what the fuck is a Triforce? The Triforce is a big triangle that breaks up into 3 smaller triangles, and those 3 small triangles break up into 8 small triangles. I'm sure we could keep going. Although back in Zelda 1, there's only 2 main Triforce pieces. The Triforce of Power held by Ganon, and the Triforce of Wisdom meant to be held by Princess Zelda. The Triforce was originally meant to be computer pieces. And my god, imagine if computer parts looked like this. Linus Tech Tips videos would be a whole lot more confusing. Thankfully, Miyamoto and his team decided to go for more of a fantasy vibe than a sci-fi vibe. Nothing screams swinging a sword in your backyard quite like salvaging military-grade microchips. Yeah, pieces of an ancient relic make a little bit more sense in a fantasy setting in my opinion. As for dungeon bosses, I like their design too. The dragon from before is called an Aqua Mentis. This lovely gentleman is called the Dodongo. Gleeok is soon to be such a classic, I love his fight so much. The Manhandler. That's what they called it. That's what they called it. Whose fucking idea? Whose idea was to call this four-orifice bastard the Manhandler? He looks like this. Link is a little boy. You want to fight the Manhandler. In this corner, you got a green little boy. In this corner, the Manhandler. What the fuck? At least Link can use his bombs against it. You know, if I had a sword and some bombs, I think I could take on a Manhandler. Which is pretty good, because Nintendo is so sick and twisted, you have to fight 3 Manhandlers! Bombs as a weapon again, huh? Man, I swear that poor Raph gets no love. To be fair, what would a Raph do against the Manhandler? Sail you away? One of my favorite Zelda items in the whole series is the white sword. It's simply designed, and it's very welcome power boost in this game. Not nearly as iconic as the Master Sword, but being in not so many games makes it that more special. The magic sword is dumb. Sounds like something a 9-year-old who drank too much glue would design as the name.
The strongest sword is the magic sword.
Oh, no kidding. Wow, really? How'd you come up with that?
It's a sword, but it's magic.
Yeah, I like the white sword a bit better. You also got the magic shield. Collect the blue and red rings and Link boosts his resistance to attacks and sports a fucking illegal fashion choice. Link, honey, let me tell you, you are not hitting the runway in that red fit. Yeah, I prefer the traditional green tunic look. It's more iconic, it's Link. When I look at this burgundy bitch, I don't know who he is.
Who the hell are you?
Finally, we make our way to the final dungeon. Keep in mind, most dungeons are this size. The final dungeon on the other hand, yeah, looks like this. Bro is overcompensating. There are tons of challenging enemies down here. Most of them consisting of Wizrobes. My god, these guys are such a pain. Would have liked it if they had a room or two with darkness. These big knights from earlier in the game that make for an awesome enemy. But finally you get to the final room and fight the big bad himself, Ganon. This will surely be a climactic boss fight for the ages. He's invisible for most of the fight. Look at this badass sprite and design we have for the villain of this game that we've been waiting to reveal the whole playthrough. He's so cool. He's so badass. Now you see him, now you don't. What the fuck, Nintendo? Once you can hit him, nothing will do damage except for the silver arrows you found earlier. Light him up with a few of those, collect your piece of the Triforce, and move on to save Zelda. Thanks, Link. You're the hero of Hyrule.
Hear that, bitches? I'm the hero of Hyrule, not you and not you.
You didn't let us even have a turn.
And that was Zelda 1. It's definitely held back by hardware limitations. For example, in development there used to be multiple playable characters, all with different abilities, but they had to scrap it due to hardware limitations. That poor damn hamster. However, it gets so much right for its time in the game design department, and it revolutionized gaming as a whole with save states. There's so many practices that were just not around back then that became staples after this game's release. The music is incredible. It was composed last second by a developer due to the original song not being eligible for use due to copyright. The combat feels like a fun action chess game. The tried and true Save the Princess story is always a quick and easy motivation for a game with little plot. But while this game does beat most of its dated and design hardware problems, it doesn't beat all of them. When the ground is beige and the clues are this vague, it's clear that more practice and better hardware would have really made this game shine. Going back to play this game today though, as frustrating as it is, it's a magical experience. Now of course I have to have YouTube open at all times in case I get lost or need to find a heart container, but that's no reason to call the game bad. Far from it. YouTuber Scott the Woz says it best. Following a guide to this game is like following clues on a treasure map. And once you accept that idea, the whole game becomes so much more fun to play. I thought playing this today would be torture. But once I got into playing it, really feeling the combat, figuring out the puzzles, with help, I enjoyed the game more than I ever thought I would. The only problem with using tutorials is, I wish I lived in the 80s playing this game. Scavenging for Nintendo Power magazines, asking friends at school for help on what to do next, it really just sounds like an experience that cannot be matched today. Sure, Call of Duty Zombies and Destiny are cryptic, but you just look up a YouTube guide for those. There was no YouTube in the 80s. No one could tell you where to go next except your friends at the playground and maybe a Nintendo Power magazine if you were lucky enough to find one. So my final verdict for the game is that it's actually pretty good, but it was always destined to be more.
And that's how I got here. Fuck, that didn't explain anything. I can't help it. I just start talking about Zelda and I want to keep going. I mean, what else am I going to talk about? Sonic and the Secret Rings? And that's why, to further explain how I got here, we're going to be talking about Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. Stay tuned for next week when we talk about that. And remember, I'm the hero of Hyrule. She literally said it, not you. You're not the hero of Hyrule. You're a bitch.